Someone make it make sense.
Probably a couple.
Hello, squirrel friends of the world. We are back. It feels like it's been a long time since we've done Kohberger. I'm sure it hasn't been, but it feels like it because I think in the interim we've covered like 50 bazillion Karen Reed documents. So that's been what we've been having there. How many? So I had 2 live streams earlier today. We've got this one. This one will redirect you guys into the 4th live stream of the day, which will be the Lori Vallow hearing from 2 days ago, which is not very long, but it is very interesting. And you get to watch her argue motions in limine, go figure, right? And that might also, we'll sort of see how everything goes. That might also redirect you guys into yet another live stream, which would be the 5th one of the day. So that will be my personal record for sure of number of live streams in one day. Also, I heard something about it being an eclipse. Does anybody know? Heather would know if Heather were here. Yep, March 2025, lunar eclipse. It is a lunar eclipse. Wow, okay. The blood moon. We should be able to see it. The first in nearly, we're going to get everyone up to speed on the eclipse situation. So the eclipse will be the first in nearly 3 years and the only total lunar eclipse in North America for 2025. And it should last 66 minutes. That's what she said. It's a bloodworm moon, more specifically. You don't know what the fuck that means. Heather, help. You would know. Interesting. So the moon should turn like red, basically. Did it already? Let me just see. Now, see, this is now I want to know what time. Let me just look and see here. It begins at 11:57 p.m. Okay. So the partial eclipse begins at 1:09 a.m. Eastern. I think EDT would be Eastern Standard Time, but I don't know why it's EDT. But yeah, so 1:09 a.m. as in like an hour and a half from now-ish, where I live. Partial eclipse begins. Totality begins at 2:26 a.m. In totality, the moon is tinted a coppery red. And then it ends at 3:31. So we will probably be live when this happens. We'll make sure everybody goes and looks. Now, this is for North America. Y'all that are in Europe, I don't know if you guys will even see it. Because it says actually here, North and South America should get the best view of the eclipse. So maybe I can try to run outside and get a picture for those of you guys who are joining us in other countries and don't get a view. And then I can pull it up on the live stream. That sounds pretty ambitious, but maybe I will try. Too fast. Welcome. Yeah. So I believe you're Alabama. I think you're in the same time zone as North Carolina, right? Do you know? I'm sure you know. If not, you maybe are an hour earlier if I had to guess. But yeah, so it says, so again, I'll just recap that for anyone who's just getting here. So this is the lunar eclipse. So the partial eclipse begins. And what I'll do is I'll do it time from now. So that way it's time zone indifferent. So the partial eclipse is in about an hour and a half, or begins in about an hour and a half from now. The totality begins at about 2.5 hours from now-ish, and should last an hour. Okay. Yeah, Carla's in my time zone. Right. Yeah, I was asking too fast. So too fast is in Central. Okay. Okay, so, but regardless of what time zone y'all are in, that's why if I did the conversion as in the math, aka in how much time it is from now. So if you're in Central, right, that would be partial eclipse would be starting at oh dear, how would that work? Partial eclipse would be starting at 12:09 a.m. I guess. I don't know. It's easier to just do time from now. Yeah. So an hour and a half from now-ish, we shall have the partial eclipse beginning. And then what did I say? 2.5 hours from now-ish, the full eclipse begins, and then it should last for an hour. And we should be live. So yeah, so we will make sure to celebrate that because that's a big deal. So that is fun. Binoculars or telescope will enhance the view. Well, I don't have either of those. Do you guys have binoculars or a telescope? Right. So 2.5 hours. So yeah, and I was doing approximately. So 2.5 hours. So it says, where is it? Where to go? Yeah. So 2:26 my time. So 1:26 your time. Too fast is when the full eclipse begins. 2:26 Eastern time. So 1:26 for you. Too fast in Central. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if he has a cell window. Don't know. So for those of you guys who saw, we were working on, Carla, did you have a command yet? Or were you thinking? You might've been thinking. I don't know that you have one. But anyway, so for you guys who saw the video earlier, for Richard Allen, I'm working on putting together another version with the updated, or well, not, I guess, update, the audio enhanced from courtesy of DB. Shout out to DB for that. Yeah. Okay, you're thinking, okay, gotcha. Cool. I don't know where Twiz is because Twiz was just texting me not that long ago. If he doesn't show up, I'm probably going to call him because like there was a recent live stream where he was like, didn't get a notification. And then he was like, why didn't you call me? Because BK, you know, he doesn't want to miss one. So let me just text him. Twiz, we are live. Anyone who wants personal notifications, let me know. And y'all can get texts as well. That's not every YouTube channel would probably take it that far, but well, he just texted me like, I don't know, 15 minutes ago or something and said he was chilling on YouTube. It's 3 hours earlier where he lives. So for him, it is not even 9 o'clock yet. There's no way he's asleep. I guarantee you he's awake. I guarantee you he's awake. Okay, so well, I feel like there were some other channel updates. We had another members only Orchid video post. I'm sure I'll think of more things. Okay, but in the meantime, oh, sorry, I just remembered another thing. So on the next Karen Read live stream, not only are we going to get caught up on the last, we're actually almost caught up. We just have a couple more documents. We're going to do those last documents, but also we will cover the Michael Proctor family statement that they made. We will also watch the video that you guys may have heard about where some dude on YouTube did a test with like the tail light. We'll also watch that as well. You see him? You see him? What do you mean you see him? I don't see him. Hi, Rochelle. Welcome. Doing some laser work. I freaking love it. Please post more pictures in the Discord. We love it. We love it. Twiz just texted me and said, KK. Twiz cracks me up. I love you guys so much. This is just so funny. I love it. So yeah, so we're looking at the usual here with our Idaho cases of interest. And we have the state coming with some responses, as it were. So first up, what was it? The other day I started singing a song related to Twiz that it was like a Christmas song. I don't know why, I just started doing it. I have no idea. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, all right. So, I'm not sharing this to you guys. There we go. That's better. Now you can see. He's in another YouTube chat. Are you kidding? Traitor. I'm just kidding. There was actually I think it was Twiz actually who was joking for somebody. It might have been Heather who was like in another YouTube chat and was like, giving them a hard time saying they were a traitor or something along those lines. How did y'all manage that? Too fast? Was this a virtual situation? I know Rochelle probably could have done it in person, but Alabama's a long way away. All right, so state's response. It's a bit much. Okay, state's response to defendant's motion to leave to file additional expert witness. Okay, yeah. So there you go. Squirrely field trip style. Cool. Love it. I love doing the field tripping. I could field trip all day, you guys. Okay, so state's response to defense motion for leave to file additional expert witness disclosures. All right, so in response, they advise the court and counsel that the state does not oppose the court granting leave for additional expert witness disclosures. Particularly in this case, discovery has been complicated, dynamic, and constantly evolving as new information comes to light. And interesting to hear this from the state, right? The state believes it serves the interests of the parties in the court for there to be reasonable flexibility to facilitate the development and exchange of relevant information to assist the trial jury. The state does, however, dispute the defendant's allegations regarding the state's lack of any real disclosure in part. As the court can see from the extensive disclosure by the state, this allegation by the defendant is anything but accurate. That is what I would say, spicy Santa being spicy. All right, good. One down. Next up. So this was for the motion eliminate unnoticed 404B evidence. All righty. So here we go. State's response to defendant's motion eliminate unnoticed 404B evidence. Okay, so short as well here. In response, they advise court and counsel that state intends to comply with the application. So basically, they're just saying, "Hey, we're gonna comply with the rule." We'll see about that. Okay, moving right along. Next up, we have. All right, so Mittelman, improper expert opinion testimony, Mittelman. All right. The state's disclosure regarding Dr. Mittelman was in response and rebuttal to the defendant listing Leah Larkin and Daniel Helwig as expert witnesses in regard to IgG matters and demonstrates his superior qualifications, by education, research, and direct experience with IgG. However, now that the defendant has indicated that he will no longer seek to offer evidence related to IgG, including not calling Miss Larkin or Mr. Helwig, the state has no current intention of calling Dr. Mittelman to testify in rebuttal. So what was interesting, we talked about this, right? Because I was like, hey, what? Because we had the defense filing a motion to exclude IgG, a state filing a motion to let it in, whereas the posture that the parties took prior to the motions in limine, the posture was such that the defense seemed like they wanted the IgG in and the state wanted to pretend it didn't exist. And then we saw the opposite with the motions in limine, right? And remember, I talked about this and I said, this is some sort of gamesmanship going on here because this is very interesting. So indeed, they're saying that now that the defense has said that they don't seek to offer it, They have no current intention of calling Dr. Mittelman to testify in rebuttal. The state notes that its February 24th, 2025 state's motion in limine re IDG, seeking, among other things, an order in limine describing the extent to which the parties can refer at trial to IDGs in this case is still pending. In light of the defendant's position that he will not be raising any issues related to IDG evidence, the state is willing to agree and now gives notice to court and counsel that it will only seek to introduce evidence/testimony that law enforcement received a tip. Just the tip, guys. That's what she said. Without mention of the source or substance of the tip, and that law enforcement then followed up and identified the defendant. So we touched on this before too. Let's read this part again because this is important. So the state is willing to agree and now gives notice to court and counsel that it will seek to introduce. Now, here's what's so interesting. I know this is icky. So this is a logical fallacy that assumes they've already taken a position. By they, I mean the defense, that assumes that the defense has already taken a position that they are okay with what the state is asking for. What do I mean? Let me pull up the state's motion regarding IGG so I can show you guys. Yeah, icky. I just, all right. So from the state's, oh dear. Okay. So from the state's motion in limine here, and remember, we covered this, right? And basically, this part, the state's view from the outset has been that the IGG information was nothing more than a tip. And they want to be able to, basically, they want to be able to get into, let me just reiterate, this is important. The state, wants to be able to talk about the IGG only by saying it was just a tip. That's it. At least as a generic tip. Again, we covered this entire document, and I can see many reasons why this is problematic. But anyway, that's the point there. So, so here, okay, check it out. It says the state is willing to agree. Agree with what? This is so gross because the defense has not responded to that filing yet. The defense has not agreed that you can get into it just the tip situation style, right? This assumes that they agree with that premise. The defense never said, like, hold on, let me pull up the defense's one. And I forget the specific type of logical fallacy, but it's the one where it's built on a false assumption of a premise that isn't true. So yeah, the state is just agreeing with themselves. Yes, accurate. So I'm just pulling, this is the defenses. I just wanted to see if they even mention, I'm going to do a control F myself for tip and just see. There it is. All right, there you have it, guys. So at nowhere in the defense filing do they mention getting into it in terms of just a tip, less than a tip, more than a tip. Tip, look at this. You can see it here. The only time in this document that the letters TIP occur in that order is in the word multiple. That's it. So the defense never agreed with this premise, okay? Ugh. Okay, so state is willing to agree with what, yourself? Yeah. And now gives notice to court and counsel that it will only seek to introduce evidence/testimony that law enforcement received a tip without mention of the source or substance of the tip, and that law enforcement then followed up and identified the defendant. I'm sure they'll have a field day with that. They being the defense there. So next up we have So basically, I don't think we need to read it. The state asks for permission to exceed the page limit for the next document, which is the last of their responses here. And guess what? It's IGG again. So this is the big one here of the recent filings. State's response to defendant's motion in limine excluding IGG evidence. And guys, don't let me forget to keep an eye on the time for it. We're monitoring that lunar eclipse, guys. We're going to make sure everybody gets to see it that wants to. An hour and a half. I'm just going to remind everybody in like a little under an hour and a half, the partial lunar eclipse begins. And in basically 2 hours, full lunar eclipse begins, and it should last for an hour. And for those of our squirrel friends who are not in the US, I'll see if I can jump outside and maybe take a picture, assuming I can get a good view. Actually, I will say this much. What made me look it up is I thought I heard somebody say something about a lunar eclipse. And when I was letting Frodo out just before I went live, I was just in the yard and I happened to see the moon. And I was like, whoa, is that a full moon? So I'm just answering my own question, which is that I can definitely see it very well from my front yard. So I should be able to get a picture of it. And then I can pull that up for anyone that can't see it where they're at. Welcome back, Jeff H. That's a good question. Is Limine? Speaking of Limine, that reminds me it's a good time to mention too. We will be having our first members only live stream coming up, and it will be legal trivia game night for all the squirrels. So we might do that on Saturday. I just have to finish. I'm having to design the thing for it. But I'm almost done. It'll be really fun. So who doesn't know Potter? If you're talking about me, of course I know Potter. Okay, here we go. It comes now, State of Idaho, in response to defendant's motion in limine regarding IDG. The defense's, get ready for some fiery spiciness here. The defense's motion rests on inaccurate factual assertions and an erroneous legal standard. Nevertheless, the state does not object to and has in fact also moved for the exclusion of the IGG information at trial. The defense's motion rests on inaccurate factual assertions and an erroneous legal standard. Wow. All right. Facts. In June 2023, the state moved for an order protecting the information related to the use of IgG in this case, including the raw data related to the SOP profile and the underlying laboratory documentation related to the development of the profile, such as chain of custody forms, laboratory standard operating procedures, analyst notes, etc. The state argued the IgG information did not fall within Rule 16 of the Idaho criminal rules because it was used only as a tip. And the state has no plans to present the IgG information for which a protective order is sought as evidence at trial, other than having an investigator testify, quote, only that they received a tip pointing law enforcement to defendant. Just the tip. The state suggested that the court review the IgG information in camera to determine what, if any, of the IgG information should be disclosed to the defense. Actually, and speaking of just the tip, hold on. Let's do this. Here we go.
Hard as a rock, freeze-thaw effects on penetrometer resistance. You know, his head's as hard as a rock.
Yay. Okay. The court found the state's argument that the IgG investigation is wholly irrelevant since it was not used in obtaining any warrants and will not be used at trial is well supported. So they're actually citing here, the state is citing Judge's document from October 25th, 2023, but also determined the defense may be entitled to some of the IgG information. Accordingly, the court granted the state's request for in-camera review of the IgG information. Oh, by the way, Jeff, if you wanted to send me your version of the Bridge Guy video, I don't think I have it yet. If you wanted to send it, I'm still working on putting together another version with the one that DB sent me, where I'm gonna try to do it so that it shows like the original video and then the enhanced ones like back to back, and then what you can hear like that's different. So if you wanted to send me anything, then I would totally be open to implementing that as well. Okay, so the state gathered the IgG information from the Idaho State Police, Othram, which is the private lab who contracted with the Idaho State Police, and the FBI, and turned the information over to the court. The information provided to the court included original documents as well as some descriptions of other IgG-related information that was available for further review if the court chose to do so. After the in-camera review, the court issued an order describing which pages of the IgG information had to be disclosed. The state then provided the defense the materials the court ordered disclosed. I don't know why. Tell me why they're going through all of this here. I mean, they asked for leave to extend or exceed the page limit. I don't know why they need to spend so far an entire page on the history of this, when I feel like this has been outlined in numerous other filings. But anyway, welcome, Need Some Z's. Need Some Z's is listening, but when we chatting, it's all good. We love the lurkers. Shout out to the lurkers. Glad that you're here listening. Earlier, we had several scrolls listening from work. Who was it? I think it was MCAT and Gwen, if I recall. And they were sneaking a listen while they were at work. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Okay, the court's in-camera order and disclosure order made it clear that all IgG discovery was to be filtered through the court. Nevertheless, a few months later, the defense sent supplemental discovery requests to the state requesting additional IgG information. The state objected to all the requests. The state explained the basis of its objection was that the state had already provided the IgG information to the court. The court had already ordered what IgG information should be disclosed to the defense, and the state had already disclosed that information. At the hearing on the defense's motion to compel the IgG information, state made the same argument asserted in the written objection. State explained that after it had received the in-camera order, it reached out to the private lab and to the... So is all this them trying to explain why the fuck they just all of a sudden had new discovery? Because this is not adequate, in my opinion, so far. Reached out to the private lab and to the FBI and asked for everything related to IgG. The state explained that it was not fighting the in-camera order or trying to withhold from the court any of the IgG information. The state asserted that after receiving the new IG request, the state showed the new request to Othram, and Othram said they'd already given everything they had to the state. This just sounds like making more excuses, Santa. To the extent the new requests were asking for anything beyond what had already been provided, Othram told the state it did not exist. The court clearly understood the state's argument to be that the requested materials either had to be turned over to the court or did not exist, because it concluded the discussion on Othram's materials with this question. Oh my God, this is just so dumb. This is just so dumb. I'll read that part again. To the extent the new requests were asking for anything beyond what had already been provided, Othram had told the state it did not exist. The court clearly understood the state's argument to be that the requested materials either had been turned over to the court or did not exist, because it concluded the discussion on Othram's materials with this question. The court. So Othram has said, you've asked them and they said, we've given you everything we have. The state, yes. The court denied the defense's motion to compel as it related to the IgG information. The defense later moved to suppress all evidence collected as a result of IgG on the basis that the IgG process violated defendant's rights under the Fourth Amendment. At the January 23, 2025 hearing on the motion to suppress, ISP Lab Director Matthew Gumet testified that ISP had received Othram's standard operating procedures in the context of the bidding process used by ISP to secure a private lab to perform work related to IgG. Shortly after the hearing, the defense sent additional discovery requests to the state related to the IgG information, including a request for Othram's protocols and procedures, as testified to by Matthew Gumet. The state put together a response objecting to each of the IgG requests for the same or similar reasons it had objected to previous IgG-related discovery requests. The IgG discovery had already been handled through the process established by the court's in-camera order and disclosure order, and there's a footnote. Whoa. That is a footnote right there. All right. Footnote 1. It's a beast of a footnote right there. Interesting. All the more reason to celebrate this eclipse. That's crazy. Until 2029. We're gonna be keeping an eye out. No worries, guys. We're gonna be keeping an eye out, and we're gonna celebrate that eclipse together. Okay, footnote 1. Consistent with the colloquy at the hearing, the court's order gave the defense the benefit of the doubt and interpreted the request related to Othram to be asking for additional materials that were not already known to the court, rather than as an attempt to evade the court's protective order and to secure from the state materials that the court had already ruled on. The defense's interpretation that the court was saying none of the requested information existed at all is not consistent with the record. For example, one of the requests asked for the names and CVs of the individuals responsible for work done. So this is crazy. The state is quibbling over the wording here, that saying the defense misinterpreted it. They'll never stop fighting, will they, over this, IGG? It's insane to me. Obviously, I mean, it's like, what are they so afraid of? I mean, I think we know. But anyway, obviously, the state never represented to the court that the individuals who worked at Othram did not have names or CVs. In fact, the state had already disclosed in-camera information about the chief scientist who did the work at Othram, including his name and qualifications. Similarly, another Othram-related discovery request asked for any data file that was uploaded to any commercially available database, and the state expressly told the court, both in writing and at the hearing, that documents existed that were responsive to the request but had already been turned over. And let me see where this footnote. Okay. So footnote 1. Hang on. Which hearing, though, are they referencing? .327, maybe? I mean, it's not clear because where the footnote is talking about this motion to compel, which was filed 6/14. That's not a hearing. Maybe they're talking about May 30th hearing. So the colloquy, the reason they're saying colloquy is because it was the judge asking questions of them. I mean, they didn't need to say colloquy. They could have said something else. But yeah, the colloquy being that they were questioned by the court as to what the dealio was with the discovery from Othram right here. Okay. Yeah, well, and I don't even know if that's the reason. I think it's just they're trying, I don't know. Because colloquy has a certain meaning, like legally, right? We hear colloquy used most often, for example, when the defendant makes a decision to take the stand, right? There's always a colloquy, which is where they're reminded of their Fifth Amendment rights, and the judge will make sure it's clear on the record that they are waiving those rights and that they wish to testify, for example. That's like, again, what I'm saying, it's like not necessary here. So I think it's just, and I think you're right, Twiz, that it's the closed portion. Yeah, I think that is what it is. And it's the part, parts of that have been referenced in these filings. And again, part of it was referenced up here, just this. But I do think that's what it is. That's what it seems like. But it's funny because they don't make it clear. They don't make it clear in the footnote, right? So there's the word that I'm looking for is obfuscate. Why are they using colloquy here? And why are they not stating explicitly what hearing they're talking about, right? Because it's not clear. because where the footnote is not where there's a, like right here, like the footnote is here, 6/14/2024. So, you know, the judge reading this, as in Judge Hippler, would have to do literally what we just did, which is like, hey, wait, what hearing, huh? And go and look for it, right? Why would you not make it clear? Okay. Carrying onward, in putting together its response, the state learned that Othram had provided its standard operating procedures to ISP, but ISP had not provided them to the Lake Tahoe County Prosecutor's Office to be disclosed to the court in response to the court's December 29th, 2023 in-camera order. Specifically, on February 9th, 2025, the state first recognized that the form Othram filled out during the bidding process asked the bidder to submit on, wait, let me just back up. On February 9th, 2025. State, why are you just now finding things out? And the thing is this, it is not okay for them to be like, well, we didn't know. It is their fucking job. Literally, get discovery, turn it over. If it exists and you didn't have it, that is on you, with minimal exceptions. Minimal exceptions. Specifically, on February 9th, 2025, the state first recognized that the form Othram filled out during the bidding process asked the bidder to submit written standard operating procedures, and Othram's response indicated that Othram uploaded its SOPs as the file SOPs.zip. The state compared Othram's response to the information provided to the court in response to the in-camera order and found the state did not provide the SOPs.zip file as an attachment to the bid. Upon further review of its records, the state found, and see, this is part of the problem right here, right? Remember when I said there's minimal exceptions? The thing is this, all it takes is for them to do further review, which means they could have put the work and the time in earlier. Upon further review, in other words, new information didn't come in. They just didn't do the work, right? In other words, if you look harder and you find it, it's on you. Upon further review of its records, the state found that ISP had not provided that file SOPs.zip to the Lake Tahoe County Prosecutor's Office. The state then confirmed with ISP that Othram had provided the standard operating procedures to ISP, but they were inadvertently and not, and this is all word salad to me, honestly. I mean, I am trying to articulate what I'm gleaning from this, which is this is a bunch of excuses and bullshit, but the way that it reads really is just word salad, and again, is not straightforward at all. And I don't like that. I'm going to read this last sentence again. The state then confirmed with ISP that Othram had provided the standard operating procedures to ISP, but that they were inadvertently not provided to the Lake Tahoe County Prosecutor's Office. Just 2 days after learning this information, the state provided to the defense and filed with the court its response to the defense's discovery requests. The state explained in its response that the bidding documents included for the court's in-camera review revealed the existence of Othram's SOPs, but that the state had inadvertently failed to disclose the SOPs themselves. I'm sorry, what? I'll read that again. The state explained in its response that the bidding documents included for the court's in-camera review revealed the existence of Othram's SOPs, but that the state had inadvertently failed to disclose the SOPs procedures themselves. Guys. On the bright side, at least they're basically admitting a discovery violation here. Like, they gave every type of stupid excuse they could. That still doesn't help, right? But at the end of it, they still get to the state had inadvertently failed to disclose. Whether it was advertent or not, which is irrelevant, completely irrelevant. You didn't disclose it, and that's your fucking job. And at least they're saying that. Had inadvertently failed to disclose the SOPs themselves. The state also explained that the standard SOPs were covered by the court's protective order because the court had not required the disclosure of the bidding documentation other than the MOU, which was the Memorandum of Understanding. It's a weird-ass name for a document. including the document that revealed the existence of any bidding documentation. Wait, I already read that part. Sorry. Oh my God. It's just, I feel like there's a lot of it. It's just, okay. Including the document that revealed the existence of the SOPs on the basis that the remaining contract documents are not relevant to any issue in the case. Argument. The defense's motion is based on a mischaracterization. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me read this last sentence here. 2 weeks later, the defense filed a motion in limine asking the court to exclude IG evidence from the trial on the basis that the state allegedly violated Brady. Well, you know, you just, Santa though. What about this part? What about this part? I mean, are they going to just argue it's not Brady? Or is that what they're going to do? They're going to say, yeah, sure, it was a discovery violation, but it's not Brady. Maybe that's what that rhymed. Maybe that's what they're going to say, because they just, I mean, they admitted it there. So, all right. Argument. The defense's motion is based on mischaracterization of the record and in opposite case law. The state did not act in bad faith. The state never made the concession the defense now claims, and the defense's reliance on Youngblood is legally erroneous. The defense has failed both legally and factually to substantiate a Brady violation. Yep. So there we go. I was right. The defense's motion is based on the wrong legal standard. The defense's motion relies on the wrong legal standard by confusing Brady and Youngblood. The Brady standard asks that the state withheld exculpatory evidence that had a reasonable probability of changing the outcome of the proceeding and applies irrespective of the good faith or bad faith of the prosecution. That's exactly why they said it was inadvertent. They're like, yeah, we didn't turn it over. Yeah, it was a violation, but it wasn't in bad faith. That's what they're going to argue. Incredible. Gross. Brady applies when the state possesses but fails to disclose allegedly exculpatory evidence. However, a separate issue arises when the allegedly exculpatory evidence was not withheld by the state, but rather lost or destroyed by the state. In that circumstance, the Youngblood standard asks whether the state acted in bad faith. Okay, but it doesn't have to be lost or destroyed to be Brady? I don't understand. Idaho's appellate courts have been clear about this distinction for decades. Decades, I say. Or he says, Santa says. While we have consistently held that Brady applies when the state fails to disclose known exculpatory evidence, we have applied Youngblood in cases where the state has failed to preserve material evidence of unknown exculpatory value. Yeah, so it's more along the lines of a destruction of evidence. So it's making a distinction between the duty to disclose and the duty to preserve. Okay. Right, Tonka? I know. Glad you're back. Did you go fishing the other day? By the way, Lunar Eclipse countdown here. We do all things here. We're not just covering cases, right? We're not just learning about trials and the law. We're also monitoring the full lunar eclipse, which we're in about T-minus 1 hour. The partial lunar eclipse begins. Again, like I said, I'm going to keep an eye out for it. So that way, no, we don't miss it. Okay. Determining which legal standard applies is as easy as it sounds. Sorry. For example, in a case where the state possessed but failed to disclose an allegedly exculpatory social media post, the Idaho Supreme Court held Brady was the correct standard. But in a different case where the state destroyed or deleted an allegedly exculpatory social media post, the court held that Youngblood applied. I feel like Youngblood should be a band or maybe a song name. Anyway, here Brady applies because the defense alleges that the state failed to, oh my God, stop doing things, Adobe. The state failed to disclose Othram standard operating procedures. So they're saying Brady applies. Okay, because the state failed to disclose the standard, the SOPs. Youngblood does not, I mean, I just want to point this out. The state, listen to what the state is saying here on the record. Let's read this again. Here, Brady applies because the defense alleges that the state failed to disclose Othram standard operating procedures. Well, okay, it says the defense alleges, but already the state earlier in this document admitted it. So Youngblood does not apply because the defense has not alleged that the state lost or destroyed Othram's standard operating procedures. Because Brady applies rather than Youngblood, whether the state acted in good faith or bad faith is irrelevant. Thus, the defense's motion, which rests entirely on its faulty accusations of bad faith, fails from the get-go. I can't wait to see the defense's response to this. By the way. Okay. Well, hopefully that's a good thing. Unannounced visitors can be stressful or can be a pleasant surprise. So I hope for you it was the latter and not the former, Tonka. Whether the state acted in good faith or bad faith is irrelevant. Yeah. Says the state, right? Thus, the defense's motion. Oh, right. I already read that. It fails from the get-go. Though legally correct, it is unfortunate for the state that Youngblood does not. God, I just keep thinking of a song or a band or a movie. I mean, it sounds like it's a thing, or it should be a thing. So, okay. Though legally correct, it is unfortunate for the state that Youngblood does not apply here because there's no reasonable finding of the record that supports a finding of bad faith. Quote, bad faith is a high bar, requiring more than mere negligence. Rather, bad faith refers to a calculated effort to circumvent the disclosure requirements established by Brady v. Maryland and its progeny. There was no calculated effort. Heather's here. I was talking about you earlier, Heather, because we're on Lunar Eclipse watch. Right, progeny. There was no calculated effort to circumvent Brady. The state disclosed to the court the records it had received regarding the bidding process. Then, just 2 days after learning that the SOPs themselves were inadvertently left out of the material provided for in-camera review, the state notified the defense and the court. Still 6 months before the trial, the state acted in good faith, and there's no reasonable basis to conclude otherwise. The defense has not and cannot prove a Brady violation. So here's what I will say so far. What it sounds like, okay, so for example, we know that the standard is different in different states, right? We've talked about this as it pertains to Kara Reed. It sounds like in Idaho, they make a distinction when it comes to Brady violations and exculpatory evidence, a distinction between this good faith and bad faith. And again, that the case that they use or rely upon if it's bad faith is Youngblood. And so, again, for example, like in the Alec Baldwin case, right, in New Mexico, the fact that there was evidence that may or may not have been exculpatory, right, doesn't even have, it's like the fact that it could have been. The good faith and bad faith didn't matter. Whether or not it actually was exculpatory didn't matter. The fact that it could have been exculpatory and wasn't turned over was enough for the case to be dismissed with prejudice, which means they can't bring charges again. So, so it sounds like, again, when it comes to Idaho, that in order for, well, what was even the defense? Hold on, let me just look real quick here. Let me just pull up the defense one again real quick. To see what they were saying, because the state is fighting back really hard on this. And the thing that's interesting to me is what they're saying is not, I don't know. Okay, let me just take a look here. So, Youngblood. Okay. So I'm looking. So we're in the defense IGG motion eliminate here, and we're going to look at the stuff pertaining to Youngblood. So it says here, suppression by the prosecution of evidence favorable to the accused upon request violates due process where the evidence is material either to guilt or to punishment, irrespective of the good faith or bad faith of the prosecution. Well, so you guys see, I'm glad I did this because literally what the state is saying is that Youngblood says it has to be bad faith. They're quoting Arizona v. Youngblood, and this is saying irrespective of the good faith or bad faith of the prosecution. Now, having said that, this is quoting another case. So it could be that they're, okay, let me keep reading here. Brady type cases where the prosecution is put on notice of what is specifically desired. Okay, here's the part about being destroyed. Okay, usually the only feasible remedy is dismissal of the prosecution or suppression of evidence that would have been impeached by the lost or destroyed evidence. what this matters, and let me explain to you why I'm taking the time to go back to this, because what I'm wanting to make sure is clear is the defense arguing that something was indeed destroyed, or are they arguing that something was done in bad faith, regardless of what we think, right? What I mean is, are they making that argument and supporting it with the case law? So I'm just taking a look here. Mr. Kohberger is now asking for the remedy of exclusion because at this late date he will be unable to investigate the impact of the evidence itself, as well as the consequence of withholding such evidence, even if the missing discovery is produced at this point. Okay. Whether they withheld or concealed it. Okay, Brady. Yup. IGG. Okay, Othram. Yup. Mr. Gamet. There's the bidding. There's the SOPs. February 2025. Okay, so this is the part that annoyed me, where they ask these questions, and we talked about that. Oh, there it is, the inadvertently. That's so funny. I'm not surprised they take issue with that, because that bugged me as well. I mean, you guys heard me just tonight, just not that long ago. I was like, ah. Mittelman. Okay. And now we're to the case law again here. Okay. And again, they're citing this quote. Oh my God, they're citing this case again. That we saw earlier here. Okay. And there it is again. Loss or destruction. Okay. And there's Youngblood. Excellent. We have recognized that the Supreme Court's subsequent decision in Youngblood consolidated these three factors in cases where the destroyed evidence is of unknown value. So this is similarly to what I was just mentioning, like with Baldwin, right? Where the evidence was of unknown value. And the point was, it may or may not have been helpful to the defense, and they may or may not have used it. And that right there is enough to say, too bad, state, you done fucked up. And if P. Fox, so I haven't been able to look at the chat because I'm looking at this. When I'm reading documents, it's harder, but P. Fox, welcome. Oh my God, isn't Youngblood a rapper? Sounds like it. There you go. Totally sounds like it. Definitely. That's so funny. And I don't know what you guys are talking about. Did you see the bloom? I don't think Twiz is like, what? Orchids? What? So Twiz is texting me. What? Okay, hold on. Oh, I see. But what is that about though, Twiz? What is the bloom about? Is it like if you type that word, it automatically does that? That's kind of crazy. Yeah. Huh. Like I know it does it like with hold on, if you do huge, I think it does something funny with that too. Did it do something funny? Or maybe it's big? Like there's certain things with the new iOS thing where it's like it makes things do things. Anyway, okay. Oh, that's funny. Okay, cool. Did you check and see, did it make big do big or huge? Because I think I saw that the other day. So okay, through its reasoning that materiality and prejudice to the defense can be presumed where the government acts in bad faith. Materiality. So the IgG materials are material. Yes, prejudice. Bad faith. Here, bad faith is evident, and materiality and prejudice should be presumed. The state, after conceding that they were required to turn over the testing conducted by Othram, failed to do so. When pressed at the hearing of the materials sought, the state affirmatively stated the materials did not exist. The requested material, the material that is at issue here is the lab policies and protocols, or it's the SOPs. That's what they're talking about. Lab policies and protocols and SOPs. That is the discovery at issue here. The state knew in May 2024 that while they had failed to provide the court with the actual SOP, that the court had substantial material. Like, that is the Brady violation they're talking about, is the SOPs. State had a duty to inform the court, but instead misled the court. They are not being fully candid. So, okay, so that answers my question about the destruction. So I'm not seeing anything about destruction of evidence or anything like that. It does seem like but it does fall under Brady. It does fall under that umbrella, according to what they've cited here. But the point being that the defense is not saying it was destroyed. They're not saying that. So, and that matters because the state seems to be trying to say that they're saying that. So that's why I wanted to double check. Okay. The defense has not and cannot prove a Brady violation. Oh, that's what she said. Yes. I'm sure that was in reference to the big or the huge, probably. Yeah, big and huge make it big. Yep. Oh, it's anything you type with repeated letters. Hold on. Really? Interesting. There we go. Okay, anyway. All right. Good question. Do we have a list of things they've said that were proven false, destroyed, or lost, or haven't turned over? I would say no, because there's some things that we don't have, because some of it we wouldn't have, right? Like under seal. You know what I mean? For example, whenever we see like the different like supplemental requests for discovery, motions to compel, those documents are usually sealed. In fact, just has happened recently, I believe, as well. Where is it? Yeah, order sealing Exhibit A to Defendant 7th motion to compel, just a recently filed document, just as an example. So it's hard. Yeah. So in other words, we might hear it argued at a hearing, but that's not going to be everything, right? And anyway, so I would say we don't have that at this juncture. Okay, so, oops. All right. The defense has not and cannot prove a Brady violation. All right. The defense has not and cannot prove a Brady violation related to Othram's standard. SOPs. There are three components of a true Brady violation. The evidence at issue must be favorable to the accused, either because it's exculpatory or because it's impeaching. That evidence must have been suppressed by the state, either willfully or inadvertently, and prejudice must have ensued. I don't know. This, I think, has some legs to it, even in the eyes of Judge Hippler, right? As I've been saying a lot with Karen Reed, you have to understand your audience, right? I mean, I think the fact that the state already conceded that they didn't turn it over and it was inadvertent, again, makes this all stand out to me. Okay, and prejudice must have ensued. The defense has not proven any of these three components. Well, I mean, Santa, you did it. Like, even if you don't think they did, you laid it out pretty clearly. First, the defense has not shown that Othram's standard operating procedures are exculpatory or impeaching. Much of the defense's argument is based on a misreading of the transcript of May 30th. A misreading of the transcript. Like, are you saying that they can't read? Like, what are we talking about here with a misreading of the transcript? To say the state conceded the IG information is relevant to the case. Of course, relevance is not the proper standard. Your mom's not the proper standard, Santa. Oh, Jesus. This is what we're getting to here. In any event, the defense is wrong about the state's concession. Wrong, he says. Wrong. Y'all.
Hard as a rock, freeze thaw effects on penetrometer resistance. His head's as hard as a rock.
Thank you, Mr. Alessi, for giving us all of that lovely, those lovely moments from the hearing that we can now enjoy time and time again. Okay. In any event, the defense is wrong about the state's concession. The defense omitted from its motion the beginning of the state's argument at the hearing, which demonstrates that the state maintained its position that none of the IG information is relevant and that the state's references to the court's order were referring to the in-camera order requiring the state to turn IG information over to the court, not the disclosure order requiring the state to turn some of the IG information over to the defense. The state. Thanks, Judge. So I just want to start with maybe a bigger picture for a second. We started with arguments about whether the IG stuff is relevant at all. We, of course, made our argument that it is not relevant at all. It shouldn't even have to be produced. The court made a ruling on that. We still don't agree with it, but we understand. The court, I understand. So the court agreed. The court said it was relevant. What? The state says we made an argument. It's not relevant. Shouldn't have to be produced. The court made a ruling. We don't agree with it. That means the court found it relevant. The court makes the decisions, and so we comply with that order. In light of that portion of the state's argument, it is clear that the next portion of the state's argument was nothing more than the state acknowledging that, to the extent the requested materials exist, those materials fell within the scope of the court's in-camera order, and pursuant to that order, the state had to turn those materials over to the court, the state. We have talked to Othram. We've spoken to Othram since we got this Exhibit N and provided them these requests, and we are not in a position, for example, request 1 through 6, we are not fighting those. I'm not saying we are not going to turn those over. In my view, they fall pretty clearly under the court's order. The issue is we go to Othram and show them these, and Othram says, we have given you everything. This has already been discussed. Okay. You have everything. Everything we have was given to the court and then provided to the defense. So there's nothing on this list that we are holding back because we think we have some justification for doing so. Othram is just telling us that we don't have it. Right. And it turns out they did have it, and you had it in your possession, custody, or control as such. That the state was referring to the in-camera order and turning, like, look at this, starting this sentence with like a preposition or whatever. Like, this is insane to me. Why? That the state was referring to the in-camera order and turning over materials to the court is also clear from the orders themselves. The in-camera order required the state to disclose a category of information to the court, all of the IG information related to the case. The disclosure order, on the other hand, specified precisely which pages or discrete information reviewed in camera needed to be turned over to the defense. Given the nature of the orders, it would make no sense for the state to assert that any additional information not provided in camera was subject to the disclosure order. The defense's misreading of the transcript pales in comparison to its misreading of the state's motion for Jesus fucking Christ. Wow. Pales in comparison to the misreading of the state's motion for a protective order. Really. The defense tries to claim the state conceded in its motion that all information related to Othram's work was relevant because the state agreed to provide the lab report pursuant to Rule 16b-5. Nothing could be further from the truth. The state dedicated an entire section of the motion to explaining why Rule 16b-5 required only the disclosure of the scientific report and nothing else. The state, they're like, we did a whole section on this, dude. The state also affirmatively argued the rest of the IG information should be protected because it fell outside of Rule 16, including any raw data related to the S&P profile and underlying laboratory documentation related to the development of of the profile, such as chain of custody, SOPs, right? Second, the defense has not shown that the state suppressed, in scare quotes, Othram's SOPs because those documents have been withheld from disclosure to the defense pursuant to protective order. states like the defense can make those claims because they don't have the documents necessary because they're being withheld. Great. Love it. Wonderful. Wonderful. Twiz is still here, and welcome also again, Toes. Happy to see you again. Idaho's appellate courts have looked with favor on the use of an in-camera review process for a trial court to determine whether evidence is exculpatory or impeaching. While Othram's SOPs, I'm wanting to just replace it with SOB every now and again, you know, were inadvertently left out of the material presented in camera. The materials that were provided were sufficient to obtain a ruling from the court that the information Othram provided to ISP as part of the bidding process was not relevant to the case. As the state explained in its response to the defense's discovery request. Literally, they're literally, this is like the same exact, you know, portions of that is included in the defense filing. It's just really funny. Matthew Gamet testified about Othram's protocols and procedures in the context of the bidding process. I feel like I've read this a bazillion times. The documents related to the bidding were included or referenced in the materials provided to the court to review in camera. The court required the state to discover only the MOU from the bidding documents. The court did not require the state to produce any of the other bidding documentation, including Othram's bid submission that discussed Othram's accreditation status, other customers, past cases, the name qualifications of the primary genealogists, the name qualifications of the chief scientist, and the SOPs or analytical methods that were to be used. Though the SOPs were inadvertently excluded from materials reviewed in camera, the bidding document referencing the SOPs were included, and the court did not require disclosure of that document or the SOPs. Okay, I was actually going to bring this up. I'm glad you did, Toes. Thank you. The 911 calls. So I heard a whiff that these have come out. I've heard people talking about the audio. I have read, though, that on the record, like, it is officially that they have not been released. So it is a good question because my interpretation would be anybody that is hearing those, it's not real. It's not real. I don't see how that is the case. Like, and as you all know, these days we have to be careful because things can be AI and whatever the fuck else. But this part I think is important. So I'm going to read it again. The court did not require the state to produce any of the other bidding documentation, including Othram's bid submission that discussed Othram's accreditation status, other customers, past cases, the names and qualifications of the primary genealogist, the name and qualifications of the chief scientist, and the SOPs or analytical methods that were to be used. Yeah, and I don't know who it's coming from, and I haven't heard it. I just heard people talking about it. So, but Heather is saying, yeah, it's a hoax. Yeah. Like somebody brought it up somewhere earlier, and I was like, what? No, there's no way. And then I looked it up, and it was like, they've not been released. So I would not trust that this juncture. Though the SOPs were inadvertently excluded from the materials reviewed in camera, the bidding document referencing the SOPs were included, and the court did not require disclosure of the document. If the defense disagreed with the state's position, it could have filed a motion to have the court rule on that, rule on the issue. Instead, the defense chose to skip that step and jump straight to alleging the state violated Brady. The defense's only explanation for jumping ahead to the exclusion of the IDG information instead of first asking the court to order the disclosure of SOPs is a conclusory statement that the defendant would be significantly handicapped by the production of materials sought at this late date, because with an earlier disclosure, he would have been able to utilize the materials for motion work in consultation with experts. But when the Brady issue is one of delayed disclosure, the question is whether earlier disclosure would have created a reasonable doubt of guilt. Why does this sound like it's flipping the standard, though? I'm not going to get sidetracked on that one. Okay. The Idaho Supreme Court found disclosure of a fingerprint report just 1 week before trial did not violate Brady because the defense attorney had enough time to review the report and use its conclusions if she sought to do so. Here, the defense was informed of the standard operating procedure 6 months before trial. The defense has not even attempted to articulate with any specificity how the SOPs could make any difference in the jury's determination of guilt, and the state is not seeking to use the SOPs at trial. Third, the defense has not shown prejudice, and the law and logic dictate that the defense cannot show prejudice with respect to Othram's SOPs. Prejudice and materiality are used interchangeably in the context of Brady. When assessing materiality, the question is whether the favorable evidence could reasonably be taken to put the whole case in such a different light to undermine confidence in the outcome. Such evidence is material if there is a reasonable probability that had the evidence been disclosed to the defense, the result would have been different, right? We know that one. Nothing about IgG in this case, including Othram's SOPs, comes anywhere close to being material for the purposes of Brady. It is undisputed that IgG is simply a means to generate potential leads as to who DNA found at a crime scene may belong. One of those leads proves fruitful. Law enforcement can conduct a confirmatory test as to whether the DNA belongs to the suspect using STR comparison. The strength of the evidence against a defendant in terms of DNA evidence depends on the confirmatory result from the STR DNA analysis. We know. Here, the IgG information is even less material, if that is possible. Oh, God. Ew. Than it would otherwise have been, because the defense has not disclosed any experts or evidence to challenge confirmatory SDR comparison. The defense has disclosed an expert regarding DNA evidence interpretation and the likelihood ratio to challenge one of the state's conclusions concerning DNA. And then they're citing prior court filings here. The parties' theories demonstrate why the IgG work in this case cannot possibly be material under Brady. The IgG was conducted as a preliminary assessment of potential owners of the DNA found on the knife sheath, and identified the defendant as a potential owner of the DNA. I'm just picturing a car for some reason, like owner of a car. But it was the scientific process that matched Now the state has no plans to use the preliminary assessment of the IgG at trial. Well, but the tip, though, just the tip part. The defense erroneously asserts prejudice on the basis that it will not be able to use the SOPs to cross-examine David Mittelman, but the state disclosed Dr. Mittelman only as a rebuttal witness to respond to the 2 IgG experts that defense initially. So what this is saying is, because they're not going to use the defense is not going to do the IgG at trial, and they're not going to present IgG experts, then they're not going to present the rebuttal expert. In other words, that Dr. Mittelman, the whole thing with him, it's like a moot point pretty much. Welcome back, Tanel. Who had to wait 2 years? I'm just seeing. Somebody had to wait 2 years for something. Okay. It's as you guys know, it's tougher to read the chat as I'm reading documents because I only have one set of eyeballs. Okay. So more importantly, however, demonstrating prejudice under Brady requires far more than a showing that the SOPs could be used for cross-examination. The defense would have to prove that the cross-examination using the standard SOPs would have a reasonable probability of changing the outcome of the case. The defense has not and cannot do so. Even if Othram failed to follow every SOP, that does not change the facts that the IgG merely pointed law enforcement. And we're getting to just the tip bit. The defense also whispers in a footnote. Really? Dude, what the fuck? The defense also whispers in a footnote. Did the footnote speak to you like the crime scene spoke to Trooper Paul? Defense also whispers in a footnote that defendant may have been prejudiced because the SOPs could have bolstered the defendant's argument that the IgG work violated his Fourth Amendment right on the basis that it revealed private medical information. Okay, and this is as it relates to the medical information. Furthermore, even if the defense's speculation were correct, it would not have changed the outcome of the court's decision. The defense has not proven any of the elements necessary to show a Brady violation, and the court should deny the defense's motion. The state does not object to the requested relief. The defense's factual allegations and legal arguments all fall flat, but perhaps the most perplexing portion of the defense's motion is the relief requested. It is in the ultimate concession of immateriality, the defense seeks only the exclusion at trial of the IgG information, even though the state has consistently stated it does not plan to present the IgG information to the jury. No. Look at this. They need to stick to something. They need to make up their mind and stick to it, because they've said it's just the tip, right? Which again, it's not going to stop there, right? We all know. And I wonder if that's why, like I was stating earlier about like the gamesmanship going back and forth. I wonder if that's what it is, because the defense has to know that the state has no way around it. IGG has to come in. It has to, because there's no other way for them to explain anything with how they got, like, I don't know how they would get, there's no way around it. And once the tip comes in, right, you could almost see it as like opening the door, you know, and in terms of opening the door, we've talked about in other cases, those deal with motions in limine, right? When there's a motion in limine and then the side that wanted the motion in limine and it was granted, they opened the door on themselves. Well, then there you go, right? Because this is crazy. The state has consistently stated it does not plan to present the IG information to the jury, but that's not what you said, though. Literally, you're saying, okay, again, so what am I saying? That they're like, oh, it's just the tip. It's not going to be just the tip. There's no way for it to just be the tip. But even if it was, even if I give them the benefit of the doubt, yeah, sure, just the tip. That's what she said, just the tip. Even still, that's IGG. So here, in order for this statement to be true, that they consistently stated they're not going to present it, then there's no tip. No, just the tip for you, Santa. Oh my God. This means the state finds itself in the unusual position of strongly disagreeing with the rationale for the defense's motion, but having no objection to the defense's requested relief. I know exactly, Heather. There's no way it'll be just the tip, right? For real. Is it ever? Is it ever? That's the question. Is it ever just the tip? As the state has explained, as far back as the beginning of the litigation over the IGG, and as recently as its competing motion in limine filed contemporaneously with the defense's motion, right, it is never just the tip. Yep. Facts. The state does not intend to introduce the IG information at trial other than to help the jury. Oh, here we go. Oh my God. Speaking of which. Okay, I love it. The state's just going to contradict the fuck out of itself. Let's do it. Okay, let's just remember. The state has consistently stated it does not plan to present the IG information to the jury. Great, wonderful, excellent, Santa. Good job. Well done. As the state has explained, as far back as the beginning of litigation over the IG and as recently as its competing motion in limine filed contemporaneously with the defense's motion, the state does not intend to introduce the IG information at trial, other than to help the jury understand how the investigation progressed. I mean, it's great when you don't have to like if you're the defense, like you don't have to contradict the state because the state does it to themselves. Shout to Radiohead, they do it to themselves. Do it to yourself, you do. It's what really hurts. Do it to yourself, just you. You, no one else. You guys know the song? Anyway, okay. Dude, this is insanity. This is absolute, utter insanity right here. This is insane. One more time for the road. The state has consistently stated it does not plan to present the IG information to the jury. The state does not intend to introduce the IG information at trial other than to help the jury understand how the investigation progressed. Santa? The state can do so by referring to the IgG information as a generic tip, just the tip. I need to make a command for that. I'll have to think of something. Without revealing the source or the substance of the tip. An investigator can simply testify that law enforcement received a tip and that based on the information received, law enforcement took the next step in the investigation. That's what they're saying they're going to do? An investigator can simply testify that law enforcement received a tip and based on the information received, law enforcement took the next step in the investigation. Can you guys picture how this would go at trial? Because what is the next follow-up question? Yeah, what tip? Literally, it could be like, I'm sorry, no, this is insane to me. This is insane. 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 A tip, like, hey, here's a good tip for flossing. Here's a tip. You know, I don't know, What else? There's other tips. I can't even think of a tip right now. I'm just like, just the tip, guys. Like, I don't even know. A tip, like you tip a waiter at a restaurant. I mean, I don't know. Tips come in all shapes and forms and sizes. That's what she said. Conclusion, the state did not act in bad faith. Thank you, Rochelle, for reminding me, because we're on Lunar Eclipse watch. Don't you worry. I got you guys. In T-minus about 20 minutes, so begins the partial lunar eclipse. In T-minus 2 hours and 20 minutes. 2 hours and 20 minutes. Wait, no, 1 hour and 20 minutes. 1 hour and 20 minutes, the full lunar eclipse begins. And it shall last for an hour. And we will continue to stay on Lunar Eclipse watch as well. Thanks for reminding me. So yeah, so 20 minutes until the partial begins, an hour until the full begins. Right, exactly, Rochelle. I'm picturing this. I'm telling you guys, stay tuned. After we're going to redirect here in just a second to the Lori Vallow hearing. It's not long. We may redirect after that into a surprise. And what that surprise will be a great example of what happens when doors are opened, I will just say. And yes. And the thing is this could be why, again, there's that gamesmanship, right? Because it was clear. It was clear all along. I think everybody would agree. It was clear all along that the defense wanted the IGE to come in, right? And the state didn't. And like they were arguing hard to get the, right? And then they filed that motion in limine, as we've read, where they are like trying to get, they're saying to exclude it, right? And it's like, it's gamesman. This is a strategy. I guarantee you, they are trying to bait the state, that rhymes, into opening the door on themselves because there's no way around it. That is what is happening here. And there's some similar examples I can give of something similar happening, but I'm going to do that when it's relevant in a different case. But that's what's happening. That is why this is so insane, right? Because now the state's like, yeah, we're going to use it, but just the tip. And then the defense is like, we don't want it in. And it's like, what the fuck? That's what it is. I think that's why, because they want the state to open the door on themselves, and then the defense can get into it. We know, we mentioned this earlier at the beginning of the stream, that there's not been a total, Heather's reminding us, there's not been a total lunar eclipse since November 2022. Is it the same for everywhere? What do you mean, the eclipse? It says that this lunar eclipse is going to be best seen in North and South America. The moon is a full moon. It looks normal. I checked right before I went live because I was letting Frodo out, but this is going to be a bloodworm moon. I don't know what the worm part means. Heather, help us with that part. But the blood part, it's going to be red. So it's a full moon. And that's what made me look it up, because I was like, oh, wow. So I can see it really well from my front yard. And so what I plan to do too, it's kind of cloudy here. See, I can see it really well. What I plan to do, guys, is when we will be live, when it turns into the bloodworm moon, I'll get a picture and then I can pull it up on the live stream for anybody who lives somewhere where it's cloudy or in Europe or other countries. And that way everybody can see it, and you'll see it, and you'll know that it was happening literally right here, right now. Yeah, the moon is bright AF. Yeah, but wait till it turns bloodworm. Still confused on the worm part of it. A bloody worm. Yep. Yes, we aren't going to use it, but we're going to use it. Yeah, it's like a game of chicken, kind of. I have no idea what that is. Sounds like an illness. Bloodborne. Okay, so conclusion. The state did not act in bad faith, and the defense has failed to show the state violated its obligations under Brady. This court should deny the defense's motion to the extent the IGG requests sanctions against the state. The parties do seem to agree, however, that the IGG information, this is a logical fallacy right here. They're like, yeah, we do agree. No, you don't agree because this is a false premise. The court should thus enter an order excluding the IG information at trial other than as a generic tip. And just one more time for the road. They're like, just to be clear, we still want it in as a tip. Just the fucking tip. Dude, I can't with this. I'm going to have to make something that celebrates this entire just the tip thing because the number of times this has been brought up by the state is insane. For the purpose of helping the jury understand how the investigation progressed. For helping them. Sorry, to help the jury understand. Yeah, they're gonna need help. All right. Wow. Okay, guys, we're gonna redirect now into Lori Vallow. So I'm very super excited. So, and we will continue to stay on Lunar Eclipse watch. So don't worry about that at all. But give me just a second. This should redirect you guys, but if not, you'll see it. We're going live with Lori Vallow, and I'm going to go ahead and roll the outro.